Welcome back to AV Reacts, the show where we get together with a group of experts to talk about the things that we see going on in the world and in pop culture, and we do all of that from an audiovisual perspective. I'm your host, Leon Prather, and I gotta say, it's time. It's time, guys. It's time, listeners. You've all been asking, hailing us, demanding even. Both AV pros and enthusiasts alike have been demanding that we finally take a look back at the role that AV has played in popular sports in 2024. I gotta say, the fan mail has been kind of ridiculous. I'm kidding. But we put it off for too long. We kicked the can down the road for too long. We're just gonna go ahead and talk about it today. But you don't have to just listen to me talk about it. You're gonna get to listen to a few of our pretty esteemed guests. First off, most of these people don't really need much introduction. We've got our digital media producer, Narin Nara, who has been with us ever since the beginning, really. And now he's gracing us by being on camera and on mic. And I would have a nickname for you, but you already have one, the Tie Guy. So how are you doing, Narin?
I'm doing fantastic, Leon. Thanks for having me. And it's great to be on camera today and not behind it.
Thank you for not firing me, actually. It's great to have you on the show. Also, we have over in this other corner, our kind of trending topic guru and all around kind of social media savant. I call him Gibran G-Unit Nassif. How are you doing, Gibran?
That's a good intro. I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk with you guys today about sports. So looking forward to it.
And last, but certainly not least, a woman who honestly has so many things I could probably add to the end of her name. Multimedia journalist, you're an influencer, an all-around good person. We'll just focus on that. Alesia Hendley, who many of you might already know as, wait for it, the smooth factor. No?
Well, thank you for that intro. What's happening, guys?
Look, it's hard coming up with nicknames and things for everybody every time that we do this. And it turns out that the three people on this episode already kind of had names. So the best I could do is just try to add a little bit of extra energy to it. But we're so glad to have you all here. We are talking, like I said, about AV in sports. This episode is going to be a little bit different for anyone that's listened to this before. Essentially, this entire episode is really around the interwebs special. It's one of our kind of favorite segments where we take things from around the internet that we've seen that have trended, things that we think are interesting, share them with each other. We react to those things. They're pretty much always something remarkable, but at the very least, they're memeable, I would say. But this time, everything that we're sharing is basically from around the interwebs. But you listeners at home, you probably already know about some of these things, but we're going to take it a step further and talk about the AV going on in those particular events, from the Super Bowl to the Olympics to WNBA, FIBA over in Europe, so many things, right? Well, I thought we'd just share some thoughts around some of the themes that we've seen this year in sports, some of the themes that we've seen behind the tech that's been impacting sports, really kind of focusing on the fan experience, right? We all tune into these big events because we want to see the athletic prowess on display, but something that really helps that is the AV tech that's going on in those broadcasts and also in the in-person experience. So we're going to break things down into a couple themes, and each time we go to one, we'll give our take on what's going on, why we think it matters for the fan experience and maybe technology in general, and maybe even how it all works. Sound good?
Yeah,
all right.
totally.
I'm ready to me.
Let's jump into our first topic, our first theme, which I'm going to call immersion. So this is kind of more about perspective, I'd say. And I'm actually going to share my screen here. And what we're seeing here is a lot of video of the event. The event in particular is actually the Olympics. It struck me how much was going on when it came to immersion. Kind of, looking at cinematography, things like that. And I'm honestly going to throw first to Narin and just talk about this idea. Like, Narin, what do you see going on when you're looking at the broadcast of the Olympics this year when it comes to immersion?
I think, pause. I think we're seeing a lot of things when it comes to broadcasts, in particular with France, right? And the Paris Olympics in particular. I think there's this level of culture that you need to introduce into the broadcast. Obviously, like Paris, right? It's a beautiful place. It's they need to inject a little bit of that French aesthetic and feel into it, right? And I think with the broadcast, there's a ton of emphasis not only on that element of it, but also bringing you closer to the action, whether it's, changing up how we handle like the hard cam and all that, right? Like, how do we get closer? Do we use drones? Do we use like a mirrorless camera on a gimbal? There's just so much ways you can tell the story just using these cinematography techniques, right? So it's really cool to see all of that, getting you closer to the action. As you can see right there, all those cameras that are just like just so close to the action, right? It brings you right there, makes you feel like you're there. I think establishing that sense of FOMO, right? Like, oh man, I should have booked a flight to Paris and experienced it myself. But sitting at home and watching it, it's not bad either, because you get to see everything. While we're on the topics of the Paris Olympics, I do want to do a special shout out. I love metal music.
Okay.
The opening reception to me, or not opening reception, the opening ceremony was incredible because they had Gojira there. Such an awesome band. The way they actually presented it was pretty cool as well. Just wanted to put in that little shout out there. I enjoyed that part very much. I know it didn't have to do with sports, it's more the music, but it's very cool.
No, that's fine. So, Alesia, Gibran, what can you like? Obviously, Narin is definitely kind of a cinematography expert as one of our digital media producers here at Avixa. But from a fan perspective, I know you guys are fans of sports and also fans of tech. From a fan perspective, why does this matter? Why does it matter right now that we're seeing so much kind of high-end cinematography? What is that really doing for you at home?
Well, I mean, it's putting you in the space, right? The Olympics looked very spaced out. Like if I was there, I probably would be annoyed that I had to go to so many different spots for so many different events. It just looked like everything was spread out. But from our side of it, engaging on the back end side, it just looked like, all right, let's do this cool drone shot to the next game or to the next space, right? You're going from 3-on-3 to swimming to, track and field really quickly. And I think that was part of my personal experience, was being being immersed in that and being able to do that so quickly, opposed to having to deal with probably all the traffic and the nonsense that was going on as boots on the ground. The content was just delivered really well. Everything seemed flawless. Like, I know that broadcast director was definitely doing his thing because everything was smooth and seamless. I was like, yeah, I could, I know that that broadcast room was buzzing with energy, but being able to watch it from home and be immersed in, like, even that clip of, the track, you're watching everybody run so fast and they're able to capture that. You actually, you feel like you're right there. So it was a beautiful Olympic year. It was fun to watch, even sports that you don't usually watch. That's kind of the hype of the Olympics anyway. You get into stuff that you only watch, every 4 years. But the content was great. I mean, even Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart were going around eating different kinds of foods, right? Like they really immersed you into the full experience of not just the sports themselves, but the culture of the city.
Gibran, I'm wondering, do you have there's a business aspect of this too, right? Like this is a tech podcast, but let's talk about why we would do this for the audience. For the fan, it's great to feel like you're really there. But what is having awesome footage like this, where we're blending awesome tech, of course, with really skilled use of said tech? Again, broadcast is AV. What is that really doing for the Olympics itself, right? Is that expanding the audience on things like social and whatnot?
Yeah, I would say this Olympics was the most social Olympics ever, because you had, I'll first go back for a second because we're talking about the tech side. And if you guys, I'm sure people tuning in, if they got the Peacock app, I was able to watch 4 or 5 games at once. Because I remember in the past, we had, we would miss a game, or I was like, oh, I missed this. But I had like 4 or 5 different games going on at the same time. And I would be able to watch the end of the U.S. Men's basketball. Shout out to the U.S. for the gold. And I would be able to watch swimming, and I'll go back and forth. So that was the cool kind of at-home experience, like the immersion we were talking about. And going back to the social question you just asked, I think it was great to see athletes engaging with fans, gaining lots of fans. doing collaboration posts with the Olympic pages, with the NBC pages. All of us were on Twitter all over again, kind of seeing what was happening during the opening ceremony, the closing ceremony with Tom Cruise, all that kind of stuff, kind of jumbled into social. So I think it was the most social Olympics, and even the next Olympics in LA is going to be crazy, I bet. But it was cool to see the athlete to fan relationship on social media. I thought that was very powerful. And it was great to see the Olympics posting recaps almost immediately after a game. I mean, so shout out to the broadcast and AV team. We were like going crazy cutting clips. I'm sure they have big teams doing that, but that was an impressive thing as well. You can scroll on Instagram on later in the evening and see recaps of everything, really, basically. So that was impressive.
Yeah. So shout out to the tech behind all of this, because whether we realize it or not, as fans, we get to experience and enjoy all of these things because of this awesome integration going on, where we've got not only fantastic cameras and people using them in really great ways, and fantastic audio. Definitely got to not forget audio. Audio matters. 50% of video is audio, but also the idea that we have the ability to actually experience those things almost what feels to us like almost in real time. We've said it a lot that there's the convergence of AV and IT, and people like Frank Paticalo have come on and been like, the IP is the future. We should always be talking about that. IP networks. We're seeing that is mattering more and more and more, not just for communication in our tech, but also for just getting things to people. And again, we all do this because of the audience, right? But Gibran, I'm glad you mentioned Tom Cruise. I actually can't think of anything that was more cinematic than the inclusion of Mr. Cinema himself.
Unbelievable.
Has nothing to do with tech, and to be perfectly honest, not really sure why he was there. But we can't not mention it. It was definitely memorable. Let's go ahead and move on to our second theme here. I'm realizing that all of these themes have eyes, and I don't remember if I even realized that we did alliteration. Like the first theme was immersion. The next one's actually going to be information. And why would I bring this up? Like, I'm not an expert in sports. So this kind of thing actually helps me a lot. I love to see, like I said, the athletics on display. But apart from that, sometimes I, or maybe other people, maybe other tech nerds like myself who may not actually do as much outside as we should, we might lose some appreciation for what's going on in these sports just due to the fact that we, don't have as much experience maybe on some teams, maybe not stereotyping us all, but, I'm still waiting for that Olympic call, but it's been 30 some years and it still hasn't come yet, but who knows? There are a couple things that showed up that seemed to really hit with folks this year that I think were really, really memorable. I'll share my screen one more time here to show a couple more examples. We've got some things going on. Oop, wait a minute. Sorry, we're getting an ad from our recording software. 1 second. Let's get rid of that. There we go. We've actually got the Intuit Dome. The Intuit Dome and the sort of the Halo board. So if you haven't heard of these things, the Intuit Dome is the new LA Clippers stadium. Our friend Lolo, social media influencer as well, had actually kind of shared a video with us of her going to this big stadium that Steve Ballmer is kind of in charge of. Steve Ballmer from Microsoft. There's a lot of things that are cool about that design, but that Halo board is a 360-degree, millions of LED sort of display that wraps around to give the audience the ability to see things from lots of different perspectives. And I think that things like this can sometimes gloss over us. But when you look at this, you see like, wait, it doesn't matter where I sit. It doesn't matter where I sit. I can actually still get a pretty good experience in terms of getting the information about what's going on as well, right? Actually, it was Gibran that you were the one that actually brought this to my attention. Is there anything you can tell our folks at home about this particular install or what was going on with it?
Oh, man. I was following this since the beginning when it was even being created, the construction process. But this stadium's absolutely amazing. Being an NBA fan, some unique stuff about this LED board. It's the biggest in basketball. It's one of the biggest ever in a sports stadium. some unique features that not many people are mentioning, but maybe some have, that is the seat. The seat has every seat has chargers. There's even a gaming controller on the armrest where you can interact and play games with the board somehow. There's the different lighting features on each seat that match with the music and the lights when the players come out and things like that. There's all sorts of great, unique things besides the Halo board. But another unique thing for people who are into stats, there's a lot of sports people that out there into the stats of the players. They have very unique displays, as you see in this video, of player stats and different types of stats that that were never shared. You can now see it on the Halo board as well. So very amazing. They're also going to be doing concerts there as well, and seeing people share this on social media. It's going to be fun. So hopefully soon I'll be able to go to it and check it out one day. But it's a huge thing for the NBA, and it's a huge thing for sports.
Yeah. Kind of throw back to an earlier episode from this year. We talked about the Super Bowl, and one of the things that I was saying that was amazing for me was how much AV, or how much tech was being used overlaid on top of AV to make sure that me at home, that I felt like I understood the sport even better than I maybe did before, with just overlaying things on top of the video as it's happening, showing me the real-time stats on the players, showing me things like, of course, where the lines of scrimmage are, all these different things that, again, kind of like what Alesia said, thinking about what you said about the Olympics, it's all kind of spaced out. You have to move around. In my mind, if I was a fan, I find myself sometimes choosing not to go to a stadium, because at home, I feel like sometimes I might get a better experience because I get more information, and it's really the AV that's doing that. But now we've got things where people are actually trying to help folks get that information as a fan. Again, the fan experience is king here, is the important thing. Getting that kind of in the moment. We're going to throw a shout out to one more example here that technically is not maybe an exact 2024 item, but this has still been hitting this year, so I'm going to bring it up anyway. And that is the FIBA LED court. The LED court that was used at I think it was a championship game for women's under 19 in Spain, where this whole floor was LED. We've covered it on Avixa TV. I think it's been covered other places as well. But this seems to be making a trend. Like, we've seen some other people actually building these kinds of things as well, and a lot of their videos have been flying around on social. But as far as information, we're seeing things like athlete tracking. We're seeing, someone shooting a free throw, and when it's a free throw and where they're getting 2 points, or where they get a certain number of points, or when they're getting 3 points, which shouldn't be that hard probably, but you kind of be surprised on how many people don't maybe recognize those kinds of things. But why would you all, what do you feel like matters about this? Sort of what does this kind of say for where we're going in the future, or how hard do you think these things are to do?
I don't think they're hard. I think they're expensive. That's why, if they weren't expensive, I'm sure everybody would be doing it. But even from an athlete perspective, when I think about it, it's like this could kind of cause some distractions, right? Eventually, I feel like all courts will probably be LED. And from that home experience, you'll see when something is a 3-pointer, it'll kind of be like a video game. Like, you remember NBA jams? It could be like, oh, this guy's on fire. Like, there'll be graphics. Yes. It'll probably be a whole thing, right? In time. Right now, I think it's cool for special events like an All-Star game or FIBA, whatever the case is. And it serves a purpose. It's, you can get data from it as well. So it's awesome, but it's relatively expensive. And not to say that these large league organizations aren't making money, because the NBA certainly has the money for it when they're paying some players $300 plus million a year, but also that comes from a team. Anyways, long story short, we will get there. I just think it's expensive. And then how does that translate in the building, right? Like, how do fans see the court during the game, the lighting? All of this becomes a whole different conversation for the in-house experience versus the backside experience. But the Clipper Stadium, I want to go back to that because I'm very excited about this place. Almost as excited, if not more excited, than I was in the Chase Center. Remember when the Chase Center first opened? And that was just like this huge thing. You know, they're moving from city to open this new space. And it was just like this level of excitement. Now you got the Clippers doing this after they've had this ongoing rivalry with the Lakers in the Staples Center. Well, now something else now, right? But forever, now they have their own space to create their own fan experience. And that's something that I think is special to the fans, right? You're a Clipper fan. You can go there and check it out and experience this top tier experience that you can't get at any other stadium currently. Also, I'm a little butthurt that Westbrook got traded to the Nuggets, so I won't be seeing him playing in a Clippers jersey in that building. Unfortunately, that was kind of the dream. Once that opens, go to LA, you know, get me a nice good seat. I mean, you mentioned that there's no bad seat in the place because of the board, but I don't believe that. I'm one of those people that likes, I got to be in the spot that I want to be in, right? To feel it. I want to be close. I want to see them sweating. You know, I want it to be a whole experience. But yeah, unfortunately, I will not be able to see Westbrook in a Clippers jersey in the new building.
I think there's something to be said too about sort of the accessibility aspect. I think that's something, I think we've talked about that maybe a few times on our show before, but the accessibility aspect of like what AV is doing. A lot of the examples we're showing, they show a lot of things that are flashy, right? Or a lot of things that you might start by asking, wait, why did we choose to do that? You made something cool, but why did we choose to? Were we solving a problem? And in some cases we are. Sometimes we're solving a problem for someone that we're not thinking about and we don't even know it. And so one of the things that resonates with me about this idea of bringing more information to fans in different ways is the accessibility aspect. You know, if you have to sit in the nosebleeds, okay, this is accessibility when it comes to economics, at least. You have to sit in the nosebleeds, you can't afford the ringside seat or the courtside seat. You know, getting something that kind of connects you a little bit more, that's a huge win for that person there. But then if you're at home because you couldn't make it to the thing, you just can't fly or whatever the reason is, being able to sort of account for that person too is pretty cool. I totally agree with you. We have to definitely make sure we're thinking about anyone that's in the whole experience, right? That it's equitable, right? That
and I mean, tickets probably aren't going to get cheaper. The more technology you put into the space, the tickets are just going to keep getting more and more expensive, just like everything else in this economy. But you know, it's interesting. It's interesting how these facilities are going to make money while not draining fans' pockets, right? Like there's got to be a halfway point, or maybe not. People, you know, we're all just anxious to get back outside. So if you got it, live it up, I guess.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Some of the kind of specs on some of these things that I remember were, apart from millions and millions of pixels, what we were told was on the case of like the LED floor, that actually the glass and whatnot that was built there with the subfloor was actually more elastic than hardwood, which sounds like, oh, great, you're doing even better than what a cord is. But actually, when it's more elastic, that still means you have to adjust. That still means you have to adjust. It means it may not be worse going one way, but it's still something to adapt to. So it'll be interesting to see how this evolves in the future. But I'm going to continue the same thread that Alesia just pulled on about the fan experience, and really thinking about the fan experience of being there, right? The last theme that I wanted to talk about is interactivity. Interactivity really kind of, we've hit immersion, which is a little bit more about not being there exactly. The information, which again is kind of, not really about being there, but then interactivity, that's I'm there now. I'm there. Let's take a look at what it's like to kind of be at the event. Now, Alesia, you had mentioned a couple examples leading up to this episode. I remember once you and I were chatting online about some kind of like LED bracelets, which we actually have some footage of from the Olympics. And then I think you had something from the WNBA. You want to touch on a couple of those things?
Yeah. At the Olympics, I thought it was pretty cool. Like before the major events within track and field started, like I think it was the men's 100, because that was a big one. All those guys are super fast. Everybody's hype. You want to see those guys taking off like lightning. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that moment, I was sitting on the couch. I was like, yeah. I was like low key getting goosebumps. Like I was hype. I felt like I was there too. But those interactive bracelets, I was like, that's pretty cool. And I mean, I've seen those over the last, I would say maybe about maybe 3 to 2 years or so. You're seeing that more and more of that, and especially in college stadiums. So I don't know. It just helped create the vibe, right? It created the hype. It was like having a bunch of hype men just going on and preparing for some really great sporting events. And then, I mean, WNBA is growing. They have something called WNBA Live, where you can go to a designated space and interact with all of their new partners, which they're calling game changers. And each, I guess, what do you want to call these? Like exhibits or, interactions. You had Google there. I mean, you had American Express there. You had Nike, right? Everybody had kind of like their own activation with a kind of like a historic feel to paying homage to the game. And American Express was like, it was exclusive because obviously you had to have the card, some form of American Express card to get into this one. But once you get in, it's free. They got all kinds of digital signage in there where you could go in and take a picture of yourself, kind of, go through a test and say, yeah, I've been watching this long. This is my favorite player. And they give you a profile. Are you a rookie? Are you a OG? Are you a league veteran? Whatever the case is. And then you would walk around this corner and there was a huge LED wall where they put all the pictures of these different fan interactions, right? And then at the end, there was also a really cool space where they were playing some audio about the history of the game, but it was in one of those like kind of soundscape things. So it was shaped like a basketball and you walk under it. And then that's how you listen to the audio in this open space. So, I mean, there was just tons of technology all over the place. And the game itself was in Footprint Stadium, which has done some really amazing updates over the last 5 years. Like their VIP space has some crazy LED going on. So, go in there, use your American Express card, get so much off. And then it's got the LEDs going with, so like they're finding ways to connect partnership technology and include that into interactivity from a fan engagement point. Right. So it's cool to see the technology that's behind these things and just, leveling up the experience, the in-person experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And any of our other guests can definitely jump in on this as well. I think a common theme that we're seeing this year, something that should be celebrated across the board for anyone that's done it. If we didn't have footage of your example, sorry, send it to us. But this idea of connecting the fans to what is going on, that it's not just show, we're not just trying to show and tell. We're also trying to get you included, give you an experience that makes you feel like you have another level of connection closer to that thing that you love, that thing that you're paying your dollars for, that thing that you drove, an hour to with your 2 kids in tow and all of that kind of stuff. The thing that you're invested in, you're deeply invested. Sports fans are, you want to talk fandoms, sports fandoms, they're pretty powerful. So being able to really recognize the value of these people and bringing them in, I think is definitely a trend we're going to continue seeing in the future, and one that definitely excites me personally, because AV has always been about the communication of information, but we're now kind of leveraging AV to also help you feel something, to even make you think something, to help you imagine something, to help you realize something,
It's the joy of AV, man. For me, that's always been it, right? Even if I was behind a board wearing all black and nobody knew I existed, I knew that I was creating an experience, right? Whether, you seeing people interact during this experience, it's nothing better than that feeling. I don't know. It's a rush, bro. It's a rush.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I certainly feel too. I went to a Capitals game recently. It was a preseason game. It was hockey, but it's, it does have that different feel when you go in person, right? You feel like you're part of a group. You're it's that brand, that logo that you're associating yourself with, right? It's like a crest of honor or something. Mm-hmm. So that kind of leads me to, you have all this technology, right? And the important part about this sense of belonging is the art of it as well. The content, the art, and I think shout out to all like the motion designers and graphic designers and all of that who take this technology and take advantage of how do we display this information? How do we display this art in a way that makes you feel like you're proud to be a part of this brand, right? And in my experience, like, this Capitals game and stuff, they still have the projection mapping set up from a few years back that shout out Quince Imaging put together, right? That displays the artwork like beautifully on the ice. It's a big canvas, which is great. The ribbon boards and all of that display information, display obviously sponsor information, all of that, but also the colors like bright blues, bright reds, the Weagle, as they call it, like the logos and all that. The content is equally important in like establishing that brand presence and the feeling that you're a part of something special. So I think that part of it is pretty important as well as an in-person experience, right? You go there and then you feel like, hey, I'm a fan. Let's do this. Let's go for that win. The other team's got like different colors. Let's go. Let's beat these guys.
Yeah.
So like it's that sense of competition that like you're flying this flag of, we're going into battle. Let's do this. And I think AV technology and the artwork that really takes advantage of this technology is really what makes you feel like it's a special event that you can be a part of.
Yeah. I think you're hitting on another I, Narin. Well, we left one out. We should have said identity. You talk about belonging so much and kind of feeling like you're part of something. Man, this is why we should meet before we record. No, I'm just kidding. Gibran, was there something you were trying to throw in? I want to make sure you got a chance there.
Yeah, I was going to mention that with adding to Narin said what was saying about like fan interacting with fans and things like that. There's also I wanted to mention another thing. It's called the Cosm. It's brand new. Mm-hmm. Everyone's talking about it. There's a Cosm. Think of the Sphere, way smaller, but it's also a sports bar and restaurant. Mm-hmm. Now fans can be in Los Angeles or Dallas and feel they're immersed in a UK Premier Soccer League game. I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the footage, but this is a whole other level. They're going to be opening a lot of Cosms across the US. And that was just another unique thing I wanted to touch on, like for diehard sports fan who maybe not will be like for a soccer fan and a UK soccer fan that lives in Florida, they may not be able to go to a soccer game right in London. They can go to the bar and be immersed in a giant sphere-like venue where they can watch the game, literally be sitting on the field. So I think that's a whole other thing, probably another episode, but I wanted to kind of mention that's another cool thing. And going back to the interactive part as well, I think it's, there's so many different ways with fan and athlete or teams and fan interactions, but we all got to agree that AV has been the biggest driver for fan engagement, interactivity, just excitement when you're attending the game or where you're watching the game at home. So,
yeah,
I do. Yeah, I do want to echo something real quick that Alesia said earlier, and that is cost, right? This is like really important when it comes to planning these types of systems, because obviously everyone wants a cool, shiny thing, right? But I think it's up to people to figure out, what's the best type of technology that's going to fit in their space and stuff, and like how to creatively utilize it in a way that balances budget and utilization and creativity and all that, right? I can't imagine Cosm being very cheap, but at the same time, it's incredibly cool. So I think as we're innovating and developing new technologies and all of that, maybe the cost will come down and just becomes the norm, right? So I'd love to see things like Cosm pop up. But I think with everything that's going on, like if things are developed more creatively and all that, I think we can definitely get to a place where we can be more widespread with that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I was like low key thinking about just splurging on a ticket to go see the UFC fight at the Sphere. And I was like, right. listen, we got an adult here. This doesn't make sense. But, eventually more sporting events will happen in immersive environments like that, right? And eventually, hopefully, it becomes more reasonably cost. But
Well, something tying together really what I think everyone is saying here as we get ready to close is this idea that I'm going to echo what Gibran said, that AV is a massive driver of value for people who are coming to events or even wanting to go to these live events or to these sports. So one thing that should be, I think, maybe recognized and hopefully is really happening is when we do see some of these things that happen on like big world stages, hopefully for those of us that are in the tech, what we're seeing is something that inspires us for what we could build, right? Wherever we are. There's a lot of people in AV. They're not all working at the Olympics. Some of them are working at a small business over here, over at a museum over here, or in an amusement park or in a school. There are a lot of people at all sorts of kind of levels of scope, I'd say, throughout the AV industry. We're really wide, we're really diverse. But something that kind of, I think, unites us or can unite us are things like, shout out to the show. Part of what we do with this show is we try to actually help inspire people to see something and go like, that's something. First off, I didn't realize it was a thing. I'm interested in that. Let me learn more about it, or maybe let me get involved with that. But also, even if you're an expert looking at something that's happening, sometimes with the kind of the grassroots folks, sometimes the most amazing things happen with those. Oftentimes, the most amazing things happen with those that are on a shoestring budget. We try to mention those as well on this show. And we just want to make sure that we're always moving forward. And I think as long as we keep moving forward and we know that the value for the people we're serving is being hit, what should keep happening is the value grows, where things like the cost go down and what you get goes up, right? So these things are new. LED is not new. Some of these tech, the ways that we're using this tech is a little bit new in the sense of like the scale, right? So, bringing together 220 pieces of something to make a big floor or something that's not usually what people do. But hopefully we'll see more and more of this not only become more accessible for people to experience and enjoy, but also just become more impactful overall. Just continuing to propel the sport, or the sports plural, but also continue to propel our technology moving forward. So I'm going to ask our guests here to just give me your take on if you had to choose a team. Let's say that we had team immersion, team interactivity, team information, maybe we'll throw in a fourth, team identity, because Narin threw that in. Which team are you rooting for in the 2025 sports season? And also, if you know, what maybe your favorite sport would you like to see that thing excel in?
I'm going to go with immersion and, of course, NBA. I think all the different AV technology that was introduced this past year in the NBA was crazy. I mean, from the Intuit Dome to the LED glass floor. It started in FIBA, and then it went to the NBA All-Star Game, and now recently it's going to be for first college basketball game for a University of Kentucky game. So it's slowly spreading to the U.S., but it was great to see, the whole world talking about this amazing glass floor LED AV technology, but in the realm of the NBA. So NBA immersion, that's me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Who's next? I'm going with interactivity. Yeah, I'm going with interactivity. WNBA, and I pick interactivity because back to what Leon was saying at the beginning of the show is that AV is supposed to, communicate information, right? And being that communicator and connecting people. So I think, especially in a sport like WNBA, we need the connection. We need the interactivity. We need the excitement. We just, that the sport is going to continue to grow. So I think it's going to be very exciting to see what comes from interactivity, and how they, that league continues to rely on technology to create that and build community. So it's going to be pretty exciting, especially as more teams start using NBA stadiums. Right. I think that's going to happen. Right. There's only a few right now that play in the same arenas that the NBA plays in for their home team. So I think as the league expands, we'll see more technology being, utilized in these bigger spaces.
And I am going to be on team information and also bandwagon identity, just because you brought it up, Leon. We're going to do that too. I say information because I'm a huge NHL fan. I love hockey. I play hockey. I watch it. Big Capitals fan. But hockey is such a fast-paced sport. I remember, and it's fast paced, and the object that you interact with, the puck, is incredibly small. If you go back to the days of CRT TVs and SD, you remember the glow puck. The glow puck actually helped you keep track of the puck on. Oops. The glow puck actually helped you keep track of the puck on standard definition sets and made sure that you can keep track of the action, right? Fast forward to today, we have HD TVs. I know we're calling it like 4K displays, stuff like that now, but HD TVs, 4K, 8K in some cases, which is not really too widely adopted yet, but it's becoming a lot easier to track stuff like that. Especially, I bring this up because my dad watched hockey with me once and was like, "Where's the puck?" I was like, "Just watch the play. You don't have to watch the puck. Just watch where everyone's gravitating towards."
Or watch the
fight. That's not what everyone... Exactly.
Part.
Just watch everyone drop the gloves and just beat the snot out of each other.
No, Dad, this is actually magic. There's a puck no one else can see. It's invisible. You're actually watching a Harry Potter game right now on our CRT TV.
It's Quidditch on ice. But I think it can be multiple things, right? With information, there's so many stats that you can keep track of hockey: goals, assists, plus minus, penalty minutes, shot speed, skate speed, stuff like that. And players are starting to wear tracking sensors, and other sports are doing that as well, right? That, tracks player activity and all that. A lot of that information can be displayed on what you can see as a blank canvas as the ice. You're watching a broadcast, you see the timer, you see shot speed. So I think the age of like being able to portray information, I think, on the screen in a way that's integrated into the game experience is going to be more and more important. I didn't want to shout this out because I'm not a huge fan of it, but as you can see, like in NHL games, they've started programming the boards with ads as well. And that's, to me, when it first started, it was incredibly distracting. But with more innovation and tuning, I think we found a pretty good balance where it's not as distracting. But those walls, because they're programs and are no longer distracting, I think can also be a valuable source of displaying information. So I think information is going to be key for not only hockey, but for all sports.
Yeah. I'll throw my hat in right here at the end, and I'll say that I'm actually probably team immersion. Maybe it's a little bit of all, but I'm imagine those the Apple Vision Pro that's still way too expensive. Imagine something like that becoming more accessible, and I'm sitting at home and I've got spatial video courtside seat, right? And I'm getting to be like, oh, like Alesia said, I can see that guy sweat. I can whip my head this way to see the ball going back and forth, kind of feel that momentum. That would be me. Courtside seats, NBA for sure. But no matter what camp you're in at home, whether you're team info, team immersion, team interactivity, or maybe team identity, shout out again, Narin, one thing I think is certain. There's really no out of bounds, right? For what AV can do in sports or anywhere, really. We all just kind of have to dream up what the next thing is going to be. So we're so glad you could join us today for our 2024 look back at AV in sports. And if you enjoyed this content, please let us know by giving us as many stars as possible on your podcast player of choice. And if you want to see or hear more content like this in the future, be sure to subscribe to AV Reacts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really wherever you find us. And if you want to submit any topics you might like us to cover or to connect with any of our guests, you can find links in the description of this episode. Once again, I'm Leon Prather. I want to thank our guests, Narin, Alesia, Gibran, for coming on the show. And to our listeners at home, we'll see you in the next one. Deuces.